early, but I told you the story on Wednesday. We're homeschooling now full time. I get it all done in the morning. So in order for me to really, balance this all and be present with my kids and not like rushing them through their lessons, just found pre-recording is going to work better. So I look forward to connecting with you in the comments because it's still such a beautiful way that we connect together. And I want to be an encouragement to you. Also at the same time, priorities. So my kids and their education, it's priority right now. So maybe in the future, I look forward to having more flexibility, especially as my husband transitions to just a different approach with his work, his business that he does here locally, so that we can support each other in all the things that we're doing that we feel called and led to do. So today I'm going to talk to you about just some tips of if you are recovering from a C-section or will be recovering from a C-section, whether it's planned or unplanned, right? Because they're not always. My first one certainly was I remember my first C-section. Every woman remembers all of her birth stories in grand detail, whether you want to hear it or not. So I won't bore you with the whole story. This is just a short live anyway. But I will say this. My firstborn, I read the books, had a doula, had my midwives, had it all go, and I was super excited to have an unmedicated, ideally would have had it at home, but we lived in an apartment and I wasn't sure if I was going to be a screamer or a moaner. So ended up at the hospital. The long story short, after 30 hours of a completely unproductive labor, literally labor in vain, I hadn't slept and this baby wasn't coming out. I was ready to bang my head on a wall just to conk myself out. Finally, chose to take some meds just to take the edge off the pain, and it ended up being a C-section in the end. Baby was in distress, and it was a choice we made, and I'm totally okay with that. I leave it in God's hands. I don't beat myself up for things that I can't go back and undo, right? So my husband wasn't allowed to stay in the hospital. It was just hospital rule at the time. It has not been that ever since because I hated it. He had to leave at 8 o'clock. I hadn't slept in over 30 hours. I just gave birth to a baby and had a massive abdominal surgery. Listen, I've never even had broken a bone yet. So this is a really big deal. And I remember feeling so alone and unsure. And I was sharing the room with another woman who was kind of crying quietly in the corner. It was a very surreal, just get me out of here experience. And then the pain started to set in because of the heavy duty drugs they gave me at 3 in the afternoon. Well, by 9 o'clock at night, they were starting to wear off. That was my first C-section. And then here's my little beautiful daughter in this little rolly bassinet thing. I can't even get to her. I had to, ring the little buzzer for a nurse to come and assist me to even start nursing. So, it was a lot. And then a couple days later, we go home. And I'm recovering from a C-section, and they gave me some pamphlets and a talk, but I'm not sleeping normally. My head is on overload. So I have since learned, because I've had 10 C-sections. No, I'm going to be having my 10th. Throws me off because we had twins, right? So I'm having my 11th child, but it'll be my 10th C-section this Christmas time. And I've had a lot of C-sections now, and I've learned, a lot better how to deal with it mentally, how to deal with it emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So I'm going to share with you a couple of tips in prep while you're there and when you come home that will be helpful to you or someone else who is recovering from a C-section, whether it's their first C-section or their, third or their 10th, like mine, because, these are broad generalities. Some C-sections, there are more serious things, and I'll give you some heads up about that. So let's just dive into it. Somebody asked me, hey, Tara, any tips on how to recover from a C-section? Why, yes, I'd love to share that with you. It's actually something I'm quite passionate about. So no matter how many C-sections you have, the recovery, generally speaking, unless you have an unusual circumstance, is pretty much the same. So in the hospital, I recommend that you pack the biggest granny panties you can find. I'm not kidding. The biggest granny panties you can find. Granny panties, in case you aren't familiar with them, are really big panties that go up almost over your belly button. They're super tacky, but they're super comfortable. But the point of them being granny panties is that because they're so big and they're up so high, almost to your waistline, is they're going to go well over the scar. And I suggest getting them at least 2 sizes bigger than you normally wear, because, if you haven't had a baby yet, you're going to find out that you don't immediately shrink back to your normal size. You're going to look about 5 months, 6 months pregnant. Plus there could be swelling with extra fluid post-surgery and all that stuff. So giving yourself lots of room is very, very wise. So I actually have granny panties that I save for every birth, and I'm so happy to pack them into my hospital bag. So I have them in the hospital, because otherwise they're going to just provide you with whatever they have, and it can be sort of hit and miss. I like having my own cotton brightly colored, super tacky, super gross, not sexy at all panties, but this isn't the time for sexy. This is recovering from surgery. So pack those granny panties, they'll go over your scar, go over the bandage very comfortably, and you'll be so happy you did. Plus you use them when you get home, you'll be so glad you did. So like get at least 6 to 8 of them because you're gonna go through them like once a day, at least, if not more. At home. Once you get home, I recommend resting for at least 2 weeks. I know it's not always possible depending on, the work situation you're home, but I generally, like to my husband, I'm like, 2 weeks off, babe, it's just the way it's going to be. We'll figure out the money, when it's been more lean times. So we plan on 2 weeks at least that my husband is home full time, or we would arrange, support in the home with like, anybody who could reasonably help even half a day so that I can just stay in my bedroom with baby and I just take care of me and baby. That's it. That's my total responsibility is just take care of me and baby. And we have as you can see the stairs there, right? So all the bedrooms are upstairs. So I don't even attempt to do the stairs. I let food be brought to me. So I do meal prep is another tip, to have freezer meals prepared for you. A lot of people will bless us with wonderful meals for the whole family because we have a big family of 10 kids and almost 11. So I often find when those meals come, they're really high carb, which I choose to stay lower carb just for my own health. So I prepare some freezer meals in advance that my husband can just stick literally in like microwavable dishes, stick them in the freezer. Anybody can bring them up to me. And then what we also do when I'm home is the kids will have visits. I'll just like text my husband and he'll send up a kid. We kind of go through rotation so the kids can look forward to their turn with mommy. And I might have like 2 or 3 kids throughout a day, depending how I'm feeling and how I'm resting. And they come up and visit with me. We might play a little game on the bed. We'll talk, we'll cuddle, they'll have a turn to hold the baby. And then, so I can balance it all. I'm resting, I have support, all the other kids are taken care of, there's good food for me, make sure I always have plenty of water, and just take care of yourself when you're at home. For me, at least 2 weeks seems to be what I need. Now, here's the other thing. Last thing is some warnings. I would recommend that you look at your scar. It's one of the hardest things I ever did when I came home post C-section. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to see it. And in fact, I think with my firstborn, I didn't really look at the scar. It just took me a while to like adjust that this had happened and all the implications of what this might mean in my future if I never did go through a successful vaginal birth, which I never have. So I was scared to look at it, but I have since, nobody told me this, so this is something I'm sharing with you. I have since chosen to embrace this as my new body. This is still my body. It's a change to my body. I choose to see it as like with a different perspective that like, in another place and another time I could have died in childbirth. So I'm grateful for my scar. And it's always the same scar. People always ask me, did they go through the same scar? Yes, they go through the same outer scar. And no, there's no zipper. That'd be cool, but it doesn't exist. So I choose to look at my scar by about the day 2 when I come home, just lie flat on my bed, a little hand mirror, whatever you have. I just look at my scar. So I can be like, okay, there it is. Staples, stitches, whatever you have. The reason I recommend this is, one is like emotionally, this is part of you and it will heal. Secondly, so you can actually see if something's going wrong. Because if it's, they tell you in the hospital, if it's changing, if it's swelling, if it's getting red, if it's getting itchy, if it's getting pussy, something could be wrong, especially if you spike a fever. Then it's time to maybe like go to wherever you go to medical care or make a phone call and, find out what the next step is. I find it a lot easier to do that when you already have a baseline of what your scar even looks like. So, once you've done it, it's not so hard to do the second time. And then actually you begin to see that it's healing, and that can be encouraging to see like, look, God has created our bodies to knit back together, and with, plenty of water and good food and rest, I am healing. I'm going to be okay. I am not just some broken person with a big ugly scar on my, some of the most private parts of my body. If you do begin to experience redness, itchiness, or swelling, I've had it happen 2 times now. It's just a topical bacterial infection. It has a medical name. I'm not remembering it right now. The point is it's really easy to fix with antibiotics. The first time I didn't know what it was. And I noticed it happening, but I was like, what's that? And I didn't do anything about it until it got really painful. Not the second time. The second time, as soon as I noticed like redness, puffiness around my stitches, they're staples actually. No, yeah, they were staples. They change it every time. Staples, stitches, whatever. I'm like, listen, I trust you, doc. You do what you think is best. The point is, if you do notice swelling, itchiness, like burning itchiness, it's actually pretty simple to fix. So I recommend go to your, wherever you go. I just go to like the local clinic and they fix me right up, antibiotics. By the next day, I start to feel better because, it's bad enough you're recovering from a C-section, but to have more of an infection on top of that, it can be really rough. And there's more I could say because there's other more warning signs, but these are just, broad tips in the hospital, at the home, and when you are at home that have really helped me along the way. I could dive into this a whole lot deeper, but I'm just going to keep it short and sweet for right now. So here's the deal. I will be sharing a blog post. It's probably already available, so I'll link to it about some of these C-section recovery tips. And I'll give a few more that I didn't share in this live because of time. So you can have that just help you prepare to process and to proceed from your C-section if that's you or someone that you know close to you who's gone through it. And also like, how do I deal with this? Well, I guess I've become a bit of a C-section pro, though everyone has different experiences. I can't possibly have had everyone's experience. I've had mine, so I'm happy to share from it. So yeah, the first C-section was pretty rough, as I explained to you, but the second C-section was twins. And it was a lot easier because I didn't have as many unknowns. I knew how my body would behave in post-surgery, normally, even with twins. And all my babies have since been born via C-section. So now I know I'm a lot more confident. I know I can recover. I know I can heal. I know my body will heal. I know that scar won't stay so ugly so long and just look so ghastly on me. I know that the recovery will happen and how to support myself better through it. And even if the road takes some turns, like I said, with infections or unexpected setbacks, I choose to enjoy the time with my newborn because that newborn time is so short. And it's helped me really be more confident as a mom, embracing the blessing of children, especially as a mom of many, just by having some life experience and support from other moms who've walked the road. So hope this has been a blessing to you. And I hope you have a great weekend. God bless you. And I'll see you on Monday.